All right. Well, and again, I want to thank you for the invitation to speak to you all today on the New World Screwworm. It's been a buzz, for lack of a better word, across the news for several months now, and we're just going to track through the history of this pest and where we stand today, as well as how you can protect your livestock, hopefully. So most recently, these cases were brought to USDA's attention back in 2023 as they were finding cases in Central America, and these cases continued to move north. And in January of this year, the U.S. Secretary of Ag closed the border around January, and then in May, they opened back up. Um, and it's just been a back and forth. And I'll get into a little bit as to why that's been. But it was closed again within a couple weeks after it had opened in May. So move forward to this was an article I picked up from a couple weeks ago. They were looking to open at the end of June or July, and they had to once again pause that because they were finding more cases further north than they had anticipated. As it stands now, the latest cases that were documented were between 350 to 370 miles from the southern tip of Texas. So that is just a little too close for comfort. And so the border at this time remains closed. So what is this thing? So this was the screwworm. It was a different variety, a different subspecies, but we had screwworm in the United States in the 50s and 60s. It took over a decade to fully eradicate. If you talk to people that were producers, active producers, were growing up in that era, pretty catastrophic as far as if a herd got infested with this particular pest. And then again in 2009, I believe, another variety showed up in Florida, and it had particular impact on I believe it's the sick deer. It's a smaller deer in Florida that's already endangered, and about took them out because it's very prolific. It's very aggressive, if not getting a hold of. So basically, what this fly does is um, it's larva that's the problem. The larvae feed on live flesh. That is their food of choice. And the females can lay up to 3,000 eggs in their cycle, their life cycle. And they tend to focus on open wounds or any basic orifice, right? So whether it be castrating, dehorning, even birth with the navel canal, they see that as an opportunity. Openings as small as a tick bite, they might, if they find it, they will go ahead and implant their eggs there. And then it's just sort of a domino effect. So once the first fly lays her eggs and does their job, it opens that wound larger for other flies to do the same thing, and it just perpetuates the problem, creating a pretty significant, if not fatal, wound. So the life cycle's anywhere from 10 to 30 days, which is pretty broad range, 30 being on the outside, but basically it starts at the egg stage, where it's laid into an opened area, and the larva will grow and feed off of the flesh tissue. And once they hit a certain stage of growth, they will drop from the wound and land on the ground. And that's where they finish maturity. It takes about a week. And then they'll form into active flying insects, the fly stage, and reproduction starts at that point. So here, I apologize, just forewarn you, there's going to be some fairly graphic pictures in here. I sort of threw that at you before the warning, but you can see the devastation and damage these things can do. That poor deer, it hit an open area. in his head. And in those situations, that's usually a lethal thing. But they attack where you put ear tags in. Just the slightest nick can be can be vulnerable. So here's sort of a stage of events that caused us to close the border and where these cases have been pinpointed. Of known cases, right? So the red is active, and the most northern part of this region is Veracruz, Mexico, the state, excuse me, the state of Veracruz, and that red, you can't see, I'm running the cursor around it. And that's the one that came up farther north than anticipated. And that's the one that's only about 300 some odd miles from the tip of Texas. And so the USDA doesn't necessarily want the border to be closed. This is on the abundance of caution. This is to protect the U.S. animal agriculture industry. And so they are working pretty closely with the ag departments of Mexico for monitoring and control. That said, we're having some challenges with their vigilance and their need, or their, how should I say this? They don't, some of the parts of the state or the country are not taking this as seriously as maybe they should. So there's some challenges there that we're dealing with. At the end of the day, we are also trying to be proactive on our end to protect our own interests. So the first notable case was in November of 2024. And if you remember, I told you that we took pretty immediate action and shut the border down by January. And they tried to open it up in May, but these cases just keep getting more and more, averaging about 300 to 350 identified per week for 7 states of Mexico. Most are in cattle, and I think part of that is because cattle tend to be concentrated / monitored maybe a little closer. And then less common or they're not monitored as much as, say, cases of horses, pigs, and dogs. The take-home message, though, is this thing does not discriminate against really any animal at all, including they found a case in a hawk that was infested with these maggots. So something to be mindful of. Most infestations are found in the navel area or trauma during dehorning, tagging, or castration. So given the potential impact this pest has on our U.S. animal agriculture industry, it is a reportable disease, just as in trichomoniasis, brucellosis, hoof and mouth disease, and the list goes on. And this now qualifies as part of that. So the New Mexico Livestock Board, USDA, and the New Mexico Department of Health are all in the loop in the process of the reporting process. The economic significance we'll go into towards the end, but you can imagine if you yourself are struck with this situation, the time and effort to get your animals protected and healthy is going to be fairly significant. And then the trickle-down effect is to the entire agriculture economy. There will be a stop order put in place, and that is standard protocol on any foreign animal disease, where if it is identified, those animals will not be allowed to move from their location until the assessments can be made and the steps can be taken for control. And as with anything related to foreign animal disease, just like mad cow disease and some of these things, it's definitely going to affect international trade. Mexico is feeling the pain of this right now. So it's different than what you'll find sometimes with abscesses or wounds. You'll find maggots in the wounds if you catch them kind of late. There's no need to panic, but it is important to be diligent. So if you notice a specific smell of rotting tissue on a live animal, that's not normal of a basic infection. Um, so that should take a closer look. And if it looks like these wounds are really bigger than they should be, or they're not healing, that's another clue. Clear, to me, anything that looks like this, pain is a given. But the big thing, unless it's an invasive at the brain, which would be a pretty quick cause of death, if it's like on a foot or a leg or a hip, something that would take more time from the muscle standpoint, they are more susceptible to secondary infections as well. So we can take some things for granted. So this picture of this horse, he has a saddle sore. And from that saddle sore, he acquired the New World screwworm infestation. And so this would be something you would definitely want to keep an eye on and treat. If you find one animal in this situation, then you really need to double down your efforts. I know that's a challenge in big pastures. You're not going to be able to see in a realistic time frame all your animals, but it's certainly a wake-up call that to start to pay attention if one is determined to be positive with this particular larva. And the behavior will change as well. So for example, you might see this horse out in the pasture and you can see he has a sore on him. But if he's really just not feeling good, not eating, not moving well, he's gant. Sorry, I have frogs in my throat. Um, that could be something else that you'd want to look closer to. So if you suspect that you have New World screwworm, there's no way of telling, honestly, from just a general, like, look at that larva and you can tell. It needs to be analyzed. And so you'll want to isolate the animal, take a photo of the affected wound with the larva present. If you can, contact your veterinarian, realizing that may not be as accessible, that person may not be as accessible as you want as far as trying to get this figured out as quickly as possible. There is a service available for people to submit suspicious samples of larvae to. That QR code on this slide is a link to, it looks to be a survey, but basically it's a questionnaire with a phone number that would provide you direction on how and where to get a sample kit and who to submit it to. You can also contact your local county agents. Most of them now have kits available. So this is what the kit should look like. You'll have the similar form that you'll find online. You're going to fill out again, and then you'll have the test tube. You'll even have the forceps to pull the larva off with, and a protective plastic sealed bag to put the tube in. And like I said, this is something you can do yourself, okay? It doesn't require a veterinarian to do this, but it is important that you submerge the larva samples in 70% alcohol, or effectively rubbing alcohol that you probably have in your bathroom, right? So, so you want to submerge it in that. And you do want to pick larvae of different stages of development, meaning very small to almost fully grown. And if you find eggs, that would be super helpful too. So just a little bit of everything when you submit that sample. So again, sorry for the graphic pictures, but this is the reality of this. I guess you can call it a disease or pest infestation. Wear protective clothing and latex gloves because, again, I know we're all clean people, but if you have some sort of, even a hangnail, I think they might try and take advantage of that. So wear protective clothing whilst cleaning these wounds. Once you pull your samples, you can use the pliers like they show in this picture. You can use the forceps provided in the kit. You want to make sure you get every single larva out of that wound you can. Flush it with fluid and water to maybe get some out if you're having trouble. But these things are attached. They have a pincher mouth, so they attach kind of like botfly larvae do, if you've seen pictures of that. So that it might take a little tug to get it off, but you want to make sure that you get all of them. And then spray the wound, clean it very thoroughly with an antiseptic or a wound healing spray. And then I would apply iodine. That's a personal preference just to keep the area dry. Um, and follow up at that time with an injectable warmer. And we normally don't use brand names, and I should have put the copyright on this, but Dectomax product has been shown to be the most effective for this particular parasite. So Dectomax is both an internal and external dewormer, but they found that this product seems to be most effective against the screwworm. And use the injectable versus the pour-on. And so go ahead and dose this particular animal with the appropriate amount of drug as a backup, right, to prevent any further infection. And then I would also apply, I don't have it on the list, but give him antibiotics. You want to check the ground in the surrounding area where you've been pulling these maggots off. To see that any didn't fall on the ground, because you really don't want to start that cycle all over again. Keep the animal in a clean environment away from others, realizing these flies can fly up to 15 miles and cover quite a lot of ground. So isolation is challenging. However, it is helpful. And so you'll want to go ahead and keep them away from other animals, right? All right. So in terms of prevention and protection of your herd and your go ahead and start implementing a good worming program. If you can, consult with your veterinarian, see where you're at on your deworming rotation. Ivermectins do work for this particular fly and their larvae, but the Dectomax product does seem to work better. So that is something to consider. And read the labels for dosages, because these are based on body weight of animal. Read the labels for appropriateness of species. You can give Dictamax to cattle and pigs. I'm not sure on sheep and goats. I'd have to look, but I imagine they're labeled for that. So you want to start that process. You do want to keep in mind, though, that all wormers have a withdrawal time. And so be mindful that if this is an animal you plan on consuming, that you follow the withdrawal lines, particularly if you gave antibiotic to the animal as well as the wormer, or any of your animals for that matter. And surveillance is key. And be very diligent on this, particularly if you've had a case that you've had to deal with. And then just get on top of it as quick as you can. These animals will recover. This is not a death sentence unless it is not attended to. So cleaning the wounds, keeping them up, keeping them on antibiotics for a while, and making sure that wound stays clear of any more infection or infestation. These animals will recover. Okay, so there's some buzz around the interwebs, I guess, some promotions of getting an ivermectin feed-through product. And I couldn't find any that are officially on the market yet, but they are in development. And I think it is a consensus among veterinarians, among us as specialists, that this is not a good idea. And I personally am not a big proponent on supplement little tubs anyway. And the only reason I say that is, yes, they're convenient. You have no way of knowing how much per animal is getting per day, because you'll have the little pigs that overconsume. You'll have animals that eat not quite enough, and then you'll have animals that don't eat at all. And so the challenge, particularly with a medicated feed, is dosing is so important. And particularly when it comes to wormers, when we know we can create resistance if these animals are underdosed. So that would mean these animals that aren't eating enough of the product, that you can actually create more problems for you as far as a deworming resistance. And then on top of that, you just don't know how much of the active ingredient each animal is consuming. So right now, that's not our best option. But believe me, there's been a lot of work being done trying to figure out the best way to help producers protect their herd. So if your animals are in confinement, this is where flies tend to congregate. So you'll want a really good facility fly control program, and those permethrin products work really well for New World screwworm. They are effective. So making sure that they are covered with that, or that your area is being covered with a good permethrin is one way to keep the fly population, not just this fly, but most all flies, down. Keep your pens clean of manure. Now, if you'll notice in this picture, the pile of manure is right next to the cows. Um, that just would compound the problem, I guess, in my mind, as far as fly attraction. So if you can keep them somewhat separate, that would be ideal, realizing that's not always the case, but ideally if you can keep them separate. And then weeds are sort of an attractant for not only flies, but mosquitoes as well. And so by keeping the weeds and tall grass down, that should keep your fly populations down, at least right next to your pens. So like I said, there's been, they're working really hard to try and get ahead of this thing before it does come here. But your normal everyday fly traps do not work. They are designed for your house flies, your stable flies, and their baits are species specific. The New World screwworm fly will not be attracted to the baits used in those products. So they are working on, it's not commercially available at this time, but they are working on an attractant that smells like death, okay? Which the fly traps to me smell like death, but evidently it's a specific smell, okay? And they're finding that the screwworm is attracted to this particular attractant, and then obviously it would be a trap that would ultimately kill the flies. So that they're at least working on that. I don't know how far that is from becoming, there'd have to be some FDA approval, I would think. But also the effectiveness and then commercial availability. So that might take a little time, but know that they are working on that. So what is the US's plan of action? USDA is monitoring everything in Mexico. They have USDA personnel deep in Mexico trying to just get their arms around what is happening there. And then they have established, and this has been around for quite a while since the technology basically was first available, is the sterilization technique, genetically modified, if you will, of insects. It's been very successful in mosquitoes with malaria and some other diseases in like Africa and South America. So they're using the same technology in distributing sterile male New World screwworm flies in affected regions, and I'll go in a little more depth about that. We've talked about the live animal import. We have control over that, right? We can shut the gates. We can open the gates. Our goal is to get the gates open, because the reality is we need these cattle. We often think we don't need imported cattle, but with cattle inventories in the United States, with where they're at right now, it's great for the moment for calf prices, but there's going to come a point that we're just going to be flat out of supply. So we will need to have a flow of live animals coming into this country to maintain the numbers to meet our beef demand and keep our prices where customers will be still willing and able to purchase beef. And then you guys are taking time out of your day to participate in this producer education program, and that's the big key. The more you know is the better you are prepared to protect your herd and your assets. So I'm going to talk a little more about the sterile insect technique. Fortunately for this particular species of fly, they only will mate once in that 30-day cycle. And if they mate with a sterile fly, a male, then they will not reproduce. So that will allow this population over time to decline. And basically what they do is they take that pupae, when the fly is on the pupae stage, they irradiate it, and then that makes them sterile. So in this case, it's not a genetically modified, it's just a technique. And you can imagine, though, the number of flies that would need to be released to do a complete eradication on a short period of time, but it has been shown to be effective to create a reduction in population over a long period of time. So they actually have a commission for the eradication prevention of the screwworm. They've had this for a while, simply because Central America has been dealing with this for some time. And that's where the lab is based. At that Darien Gap is where this lab that produces these flies are from. Because of the risk of an unintended release of live flies or wild flies that do the destruction, the U.S. is not going to touch this with a 10-foot pole, meaning they don't want to bring these flies in for analysis, for treatments, for study, because of the risks. So that right now the only lab producing these flies is in Central America. They produce close to 100 million flies a week, which is mind-boggling to me. And then those are distributed in those hot zones via a plane, just like they would, crop dusting. They do lose a fair amount in that process. They don't survive that very well. And ironically, it's a start, but they're estimating about a 20% success rate at this point. But as this thing continues to become a problem, I think production rates will increase and the success rates will get better to be a viable tool. And the reality is, and I think this is a consensus from the experts, it's not a matter of if at this point, it's just a matter of when. It does come to the United States, and I'm not trying to fearmonger you with that statement. I just hope that this whole process of learning about the fly and how you can protect yourself from it the best you can will minimize their destruction, right? So I think we're ahead of the game as far as getting producers prepared for it that are most vulnerable, meaning in Texas, New Mexico, Arizona, and California. And really, it's not the livestock that are the issue. And really, it's not the people coming in that are the issue. It's the wildlife. We can't regulate that. And so we can regulate livestock with the opening and shutting of a gate, but we can't regulate the wildlife that come in across the border. And so those will be likely our biggest threats to the screwworm coming to the United States. And the fact that they are now finding it in birds is even, to me, a little bit more problematic. So what happens if the screwworm or any other regulated disease is found in your animals? There's a series of things that need to happen. And the very first thing is the veterinarians, the labs where you send your samples are bound by law to confirm a disease or presence of the fly to the state's Department of Health and the Livestock Board here in New Mexico. Depending on the disease, the state veterinarian has the authority to stop movement, and that is very common. They're not picking on people to do that. They are simply doing their job to try and stop the bleeding, if you will. So I gave you a couple examples. So trichomoniasis is something that we're probably aware of here in New Mexico as a problem. It's a venereal disease that can cross fences, right? When a bull crosses a fence that's infected, then the neighbor's cows can get it. And so there needs to be some sort of control of this disease to prevent the spread. And so monitoring with those trichomoniasis tests that you do when you do fertility testing of your bulls is one way. If you have a herd that comes up positive, there is a time frame. Calves can leave, but the cows must stay. And they must be either 120 days pregnant or open. I'm sorry. Let me rephrase that. If they're under 120 days or they're open, they have to stay because they could have been exposed. If they're over 120 days, they probably are not, they don't have trich, they can't spread it, and they can leave the premises. And when it's related to New World Screwworm quarantine, it'll be dependent on monitoring and length determined by the state and the federal officials. If you are unfortunately deemed bullseye, meaning the primary premise that has the outbreak, they will log out a circle of land and they will deem it the bullseye, if you will. And that will likely be a 30-mile radius simply because of the distance these flies can fly with monitoring. And then as that mileage increases, there's a little less regulation, if you will, on neighbors or people that are farther out from the bullseye. However, if you fail to report a suspected, FAD stands for foreign animal disease, and in this case, New World Screwworm, it could lead to legal persecution, prosecution. However, there's some legal ramifications. Okay, so be prepared. That's the best thing you can do. And you think about this is just a general biosecurity, not just for New World Screwworm, but for any disease outbreak in general. If it is a regulated disease where they're going to make you hold your animals, do you have enough space to keep the animals for extended periods of time? If it's a pasture situation, considered the hot zone as I talked about, do you have enough forage and water to sustain them, or do you have access? Will the animals have access if you could bring in feed to feed them or water them? And what type of feed resources would you have access to? These are all questions that a producer should have in the back of their head or even written down, just to be prepared and ready. And then in terms of people resources, keep a list of tribal agencies that are appropriate, extension personnel. We are kind of the go-between for some folks that we can contact you or put you in contact with the appropriate agencies to help you through this. That would be probably the first steps you'd want to take. And I would look at a disease management situation and how you handle your animals very similar to a wildfire response, right? So, who do you call? Where do they go? How are they going to be fed? These are just some basic needs of the animals and care of the animals to protect them. So in terms of economically, the trade disruptions are already evident between Mexico and ourselves, which has created, to the benefit of the cow-calf man, market volatility in a good way. We've seen record high calf prices, partly because of this, partly because of inventory. Increased in operating costs, though, is the other thing to consider, in that you're going to be dealing with treating these animals, feeding them separate, monitoring for the disease, which means added labor and time, and then just loss of production. These animals do go backwards because they are suffering, and so they're going to lose weight. They may not breed back. They may not milk anymore, depending on what you're dealing with. And so the combination of that and then death loss is an economic factor. And then something else, like I said, this really doesn't affect the meat per se. The animals recover, but it would be something that if it makes it here, it's going to make it into the press, and that could hurt consumer confidence. And so if we are educated, if we get ahead of this thing, including with consumer education, I think the economic impact won't be quite as bad. Just to give you a dollar amount, we have in the 50s and 60s, like I said, this took over a decade to really get a handle on and get rid of in the Western United States. It cost the animal ag industry, this is a pretty big range, but if you think about back in the day, $120 million was a lot of money. And so very significant losses to the animal ag industry in the Western United States where this thing cropped up. In 2024 alone, Mexico has lost over 1.2 billion in cattle revenue, mainly to deal with the management of the disease. So if you think about it, the border really didn't close until 2025. And that loss of export business, this is probably going to be triple what it showed for 2024, if not doubled, if not tripled. So I really do, I feel for those guys. The Santa Teresa crossing is one of the biggest import markets for cattle in the United States from Mexico. 90% of the Chihuahuan cattle in from the state of Chihuahua come through that crossing. So 90% of these guys' business depends on that crossing, and it's shut down right now. So what they're doing with those animals, I don't know, but I do have a lot of empathy for what they're dealing with. Okay, so again, surveillance is key. We have had samples already submitted. People are just doing due diligence if they're worried. Don't hesitate to go ahead and send a sample in. Personally, I would think at this point of the game, particularly being in Northwest New Mexico, your risks are lower than, I say, South Texas. But surveillance is certainly key. Record the date that you first noticed this happen. So that really helps the federal agencies, the state agencies, to be able to understand when this thing might have shown up, to trace it back. So keeping good records is very important. Having a good relationship with your veterinarian, I know, again, can be challenging just due to availability, but they can play a pretty key role in helping you manage and help you with the prevention piece as well. Good nutrition, health management practices minimize sickness and increases an animal's chance to recover. If it's a thinner, older animal, they're going to have a harder time getting through an infestation versus something that's in good body condition and has good nutrition under its belt. So you want to protect yourself as well as your animals just by basic good biosecurity techniques. Keeping new animals away from your core herd for at least 2 weeks. Look for any open sores or wounds. Feed in separate you use your feed and supplies and equipment, keep them separate, even though we're dealing with something that attaches to an open wound. If the flies or something is carried from that animal presence over to your healthy herd, and then the flies find a wound over there, we just want to reduce cross-contamination. Establishing a good fly control program, again, hopefully keep tabs on that new product, that it comes commercially available, that does in fact work on New World Screwworm versus just your fly traps, but the perethrins definitely do. And then a good parasite control. Again, that Dectomax product seems to be the best option at this point. And then just be familiar with visitors that come to your place, public access points, because again, pets can carry this, horses can carry this, and if the larvae fall off in your pasture, then the flies are born in your pasture and the cycle can start there. So just as we hosted a webinar, golly, almost 2 weeks ago now. It is available on YouTube. It's more than just about what I talked about today. Dr. Samantha Holek from the state veterinarian for the New Mexico Livestock Board gave that presentation on basically what I visited with you today. But Dr. Wenzel talks more about worming management, and then we also have an livestock entomologist on that program as well. So it's a more comprehensive, a deeper dive into this whole situation. It is about an hour and a half, but you're welcome to watch it. That QR code on the screen links you directly to the YouTube link. Otherwise, the link is up above listed. We published a couple publications about the screwworm, the economic impact of the screwworm, and that can be found on our nmbeef.edu website. I can put that in the text once we're done here and wrapping up with questions. So I like the acronym APP, be aware, prepare, and prevent. And this can be in line with any host of challenges that livestock producers face, but particularly as it relates to foreign disease that are not, or that are new to you and your operation. This is absolutely key. And hopefully tonight I gave you a few tools to help you through some of that process. All right, with that, I'm going to stop sharing and take questions.
Thank you, Marcy. So I do see a question that just now popped up. Does this have an e-certificate? Okay. Vincent, I don't think this will count as an e-certificate. If
Does
that
he mean for BQA or?
or BQ, I'm not sure. If it is for BQA, that would have to be talked about before, right? Or could they still get
No.
credit?
So if I can get a list, if you submit a list to Mikkel
Okay.
for New Mexico, this will definitely count as a BQA CEU.
Okay, so I can submit just the participants to see who.
Yeah.
Okay. That would work. All right. Any other questions from our audience tonight that would like to unmute, or you can insert them in the chat box?
Thought I saw a new one somewhere, but
I'm going to share our poll. So if I could get everyone just a brief moment of your time to answer those polls, I would greatly appreciate it. It's just ask of what your understanding is for the New World Screwworm before. If you have any type of information that you've discovered about the New World Screwworm before this presentation, give us a rating, or if you haven't, haven't known about it yet, you can go ahead and put your rating down there and after the presentation and how you understand it well. There is also any additional comments that you'd like to add, whether it is towards this presentation or topic or what you want to dive deeper on for the next presentation. So go ahead and drop those comments in there. And chapter affiliation, if you are located on the Navajo Nation, please insert what chapter you're affiliated with. And if you are off the reservation, just let us know what county you reside in. So that gives us an idea of how far out our educational outreach is being at. Okay, so I see some of you are going ahead.
I'll go ahead.
Now our poll.
Real quick, I did put our NM Beef page link in the chat. That is a resource not only for Screwworm, but it has links to other programs that we have, including BQA, the bull test, and and whenever we have a new program going on, it's posted there. But there will be links to publications about the Screwworm, and also that YouTube video is on there as well.
Okay. And I'll probably reach out to you for PowerPoint presentation sometime after I conclude this webinar.
Okay.
Okay, so if there are no other questions, we'll go ahead and end it there for tonight's presentation. So thank you again, Marcy, for coming on here and providing your feedback. Feedback and information and identification on the Screwworm. So thank you so much. And you're more than welcome to stay tuned. We're just going to share a couple of upcoming events and some housekeeping.
Okay, well, once again, I very much appreciate the invite. I do hope you guys picked up a little bit of something today. Stay tuned. This thing is a moving target, and if you have any questions, don't hesitate to reach out.
All right, thank you. Okay. So for those of you that are still on here, I'm pretty sure you're still filling out the polls. So thank you again. I still see that there's more people filling it out. So while you do fill it out, I'll just go ahead and move forward to our upcoming event announcement. So for this month of August, we don't have any workshops available. We're still fitting in some workshops here and there. But for the next upcoming weeks, we do have our next webinar on ram selection. So for those of you that have a sheep operation, I'm pretty sure you're gearing up to get your ewes bred for the fall. So if you are interested in tapping into the ram selection webinar, this will be taking place on August 12th. And our presenter for that presentation is going to be Chad Page, and he is coming from Utah State University, and he is the sheep and goat specialist. So some of you that may have attended our workshops this past couple months in April, we did have a sheep shearing demonstration and sheep health presentation. So the sheep health presentation was presented by Chad Page and Andrew, whom is his grad student that they came down here twice, I believe, one in Cow House auction location in Fruitland. Then we also had one towards Gallup and Vanderwagen. So this presenter here, he's pretty good, and I really enjoy his talk. So if you would want to tap into that ram selection webinar, I highly suggest it. So just scan that QR code, and I will go ahead and show you guys where our website is located and just run through it with you guys, so that way you guys know how to locate our upcoming events tab. So next one that we have is the livestock record keeping webinar. This will be taking place on August 21st, and it's going to be presented by the NSA project. On the flyer, it does say my name, but we also have Terrell Yazzie, who is the NSA project specialist, and he will also present with me on livestock record keeping. So livestock record keeping is just going to entail sheep and cattle. And we also have from Terrell's side on the financial record keeping as well, and he'll touch base on that. Next one that we have is our livestock first aid workshop. This is in September, not August, but I just want to share with you guys this information. We haven't shared it in public yet. So for those of you that are on here, you're first to see. So we are gearing up for our second livestock first aid training workshop, and this has been 3 years in a row requested from a lot of our folks out here residing in the Four Corner region. So this is going to be taking place on September 26th. And this is the first time that we're having it at the San Juan McGee Park in Farmington. If you're not aware where that location is, there is the San Juan County McGee Park. It's on 41 Road, 5568 Farmington, New Mexico. So if you just put that in your Google search, it'll give you direction to the McGee Park location in Farmington. And our presenter and demonstrator will be Dr. Wenzel, and he's always providing the demonstration and hands-on presentation for us for quite some time now. And he's no stranger in these parts, so he's pretty much welcome every single year. So not only do we use him, but other organizations use his expertise out as well. So he's pretty much out here perhaps on a monthly basis or driving through to go to other workshops. So he is going to be coming out to provide this presentation, and he's coming from the New Mexico State University, and he's the extension veterinarian. So for those of you that are going to register, please use that QR code and scan it. And that will just let us know of how much people are going to be attending, since this is going to be a lunch that's provided. So I would very much like to see how many people are going to be attending. Okay. And just so you guys can see, this is the past pictures that we've had. Some of the folks that participated in the livestock first aid training, they done some practice external minor suturing. We also had some folks that participated in the vaccination category and deworming. And we also have done the trick testing demonstration here as well. Some of these pictures are a bit blurry, so my apologies. I just copied and pasted from the 2023 pictures. So this one was hosted in Crown Point, and this was during the horse demonstration. This was, I believe, in Shiprock area that we had at one time, and this was during the sheep vaccines. And this is one of the photos that was shared with me from a producer that has accidentally cut the sheep. They had very sharp shears, so they did slice the sheep during shearing, but they used a bag that was provided. And this is what was included in the bag as well. So this red bag is in that picture, and the blurriness does not do it justice. So continuing on, contact information. So our team is growing larger, and I'm very proud of that. So we do have a lot of great people on our team. We do have on here Dr. Michael Patrick, who's our project director. He's also tuned in on tonight. We do have Cheryl Toth, Terrell Yazzie, Emiliano McLean, and Tiffany and Cheryl Toth, who are all present here in this webinar. Then we also have our NSA social platforms, and I'll go ahead and go through the NSA website with you. So I did see that the feedback from most of you guys want to know how to get to our upcoming events. So I'll share that in just a moment. We do have a Facebook, so, and as well as YouTube, and they're both the same. So if you put them into your Facebook search icon and your YouTube search icon, just type in Navajo Sustainable Agriculture Project. Okay. So let me see. Let me stop sharing and let me share my screen. Hold on. Okay. Sorry if this is taking a little longer, but I'm doing my best to make this smooth as possible. Okay. So here's our website. If you just type in your URL up in this top corner, type in nsa.nmsu.edu and it will take you directly to this homepage. So this is our homepage. You see our team icon. You can look us up and see who we are. We do have our program and projects. This is a previous project that we had in our conservation planning program. So our conservation planning program, I apologize, I did not touch base on this. So this is a collaborative effort that we have with the Dene College Land Grant Office. So if you are a grazing permit holder that is seeking assistance to develop a basic conservation plan under the BIA. They do have a template, so they request that you use their template, and we understand how complex that template can be. So we do have a technician that does one-on-one assistance with the producer, and if they want to draft the conservation plan with some assistance. So you can actually email our project specialist, Ms. Shirley Toth, and her email is here. If you are not interested in a one-on-one, we do have other workshop sessions on a one-day workshop session that focuses on benefits of a conservation plan, setting goals and objectives, and so forth. So you can just read that here and let us know if that is the type of information you want to see. Or if you just want us to provide a basic information on what the BIA template involves and just a little bit learn more about us. So here is the upcoming events. On the phone, it will be formatted differently. And unfortunately, I'm not able to show you that just because I'm on a desktop. But here you'll see the New World Screwworm, which we already concluded. And next is the RAM selection that I shared with you guys not too long ago. So when it says registration is required and you guys are tapping into your laptop, you could use your phone when I was on the PowerPoint and you could scan it. But if you're on your phone, go ahead and head to upcoming events. Then where it says registration is required, then you just tap register here. Then I'll take you to a new tab. Then you just register from there. So we do have other events going on. We do have a sheep wool mulching webinar. So this is a great presentation for those of you that have accumulated a lot of wool and you don't want to trash it. So you want to find other use for that wool to go into your maybe garden. So this is definitely the webinar for you if you want to tune into that as well. So just make sure you register here, hit that button, and it'll take you to a new tab and you just register from there. All of our upcoming webinars and our webinars that we had today, they're all recorded. So they will be in this webinars and workshop tab. This is all of our 2025 webinars that we've hosted. our 2024, then our 2023, then so forth. So there's a lot of information there that are up for, grabs. You can watch the recording. You can download the PowerPoint slides that the presenter have shared with us. Then we do have our newsletter. We're quite behind, as you can tell. So all of these are in black, meaning that they haven't been shared. So luckily, we will be sharing our July, and we're going to be doing monthly newsletters like before. So you'll be seeing our July coming tomorrow. So I hope you guys all enjoy that good read for those of you that has subscribed. But if you're new on here, you want to subscribe, you're in luck because our July is going to be rolling out tomorrow morning. So if you just hit that subscribe button, it'll take you to a new tab, like I've mentioned, then you just have to register from there. So it's going to be a whole new format, a whole new outline of our newsletter. So it's going to be very different from all the newsletters that we've had in the past. So I really hope that you guys enjoy that read. It's kind of like the size of the length of a magazine, but we hope you guys enjoy it. So moving on to USDA programs, this is just a directory for you all to get to know some of your local field offices. So we do have Cibola, McKinley County, and San Juan County for Farm Service Agency and NRCS. Then Risk Management Agency and Rural Development are just statewide. Other than that, this is the overall of our NSA homepage. We are located on Facebook, so if you just tap our NSA project from your laptop, then it'll take you directly to your Facebook. Other than that, I hope you guys all enjoyed that webinar that Dr. Ward has presented. I'll be sharing the webinar recording till next week, as well as her PowerPoint slides and any of the publications that she had provided with us from the chat box. And I'll go ahead and insert that into our webinars and workshops tab. So you'll see it up here above the AgriVol tags. Other than that, thank you all for completing our polls, and I wish you guys all have a good rest of your evening. We're known as Navajo Sustainable Agriculture Project. We're pretty much under New Mexico Cooperative Extension Service under NMSU. And we deliver a variety of educational topics, if it's coming from livestock, from vaccines, deworming, sheep breeding, trick testing. So we provide that type of education with the help from Dene College Land Grant, and as well as COPE, which stands for Community Outreach and Patient Empowerment. Ms. Carol Palmer, who's behind this, is the COPE food specialist, and she assists us in workshops that consist of, let's say, seed preparation and transplanting to water storage type systems. So anything that you can use around your house to implement into your garden. So that type of creativity she brings out to our webinars and workshops as well. So not only do we provide collaboration with those two entities, but we also collaborate a lot with our specialists coming from the main campus from New Mexico State University. Then we also collaborate a lot with some of the Cooperative Extension Service programs, or extension office, I should say, from San Juan and McKinley County. So the project is funded by the USDA Outreach and Assistance for Socially Disadvantaged Farmers and Ranchers and Veteran and Farmers and Ranchers Program. So that's who we're practically funded by to make these workshops and webinars happen and provide resource to our fellow Native American producers. So the three goals that we have, and I'm pretty sure most of you that are on here that been on here for a couple times, you know our goals perhaps by heart. But one and foremost is to help our producers improve their operations, both profitability and sustainability. This one will, like I've mentioned from the beginning, is providing education and assistance to our producers to know more about modern practices and how they can implement that into their operations, whether that is updates on vaccines right now, as well as dewormers and what is recommended from veterinarians, extension, as well as going from what type of pesticide that you would like to incorporate into your crops, and such forth. So we do provide that type of assistance every month. So I'll share more information on what we have for this month of August and September. Secondly is increased Navajo knowledge and use of USDA programs. Some of you on here perhaps already know what NRCS and FSA stand for. RD stands for Rural Development, and RMA stands for Risk Management Agency Programs. So we provide a lot of the NRCS and FSA programs onto our newsletter platform as well as our website. It tells you what type of programs that are locally here in San Juan County and McKinley County are more popular that you could possibly be eligible for. So we do share that type of programs with you guys to make you guys aware about what there is to offer. And services of those other resource providers. And when I say other services, resource providers would be Navajo Nation Department of Agriculture, which most of you on here may already know who they are. And they provide the Agriculture Infrastructure Fund, whether that is the livestock incentive or the garden and crop incentive. So they have two types of incentives programs that you can apply for. Secondly, or third, I should say, increase the local production and consumption of fresh fruits and vegetables and healthy foods by Navajo families and individuals. This is pretty much our garden and horticulture platform. We do host webinars every month that showcase at least one or two garden type topics that are requested from our audience, and we provide that information every month. So we do try to shoot for in-person gardening type topics for every month. So we do have a new staff that is on board, and there's more workshops to come that we will be figuring out and hopefully have it to you guys in person in the next, upcoming months, and getting ready to develop some garden curriculum for some schools locally. So